Joining me now, as you heard the giggles before, this is the wonderful Sandra Smith, co-anchor of America Reports with John Roberts.
I'll go for a Diet Coke in the Oval. I mean...
Of course you would. I mean, you'd have a movie with those guys? I mean, what the hell?
But remember, this is the then campaigning Joe Biden, who promised to be the uniter-in-chief, to work across the aisle. He was going to show the country how we can work together. He won't even meet with McCarthy. I mean, think about everything that you just detailed there. The situation that we're currently in, and just use the economy as an example. We can get into everything else, crime, immigration, all the reasons for which his poll ratings continue to plummet. But you're talking about top voter concern at this moment where he's about to announce another run. 90% say that is their top concern. Their hardships they've been having them for a while. They continue to have them. Many are saying they can't last much longer in this economic environment, living paycheck to paycheck, talking about 2/3 of the country. In that moment of historic inflation, he's talking about increasing spending, raising taxes, okay? And then not meeting with McCarthy.
Higher regulations. He's against the energy bill, which would really slash costs across the board, H.R. 1.
Amen.
Energy costs, right? And he won't meet with McCarthy, who's a nice guy and would be a very likable date. Don't you think?
And they've shown that they can talk to each other and have a nice conversation.
Now,
they
hang
just
on.
did it.
I'm going to play some sound because this is the new Joe Biden, what I call the Bernie Sanders. Now, the old Joe Biden, which I guess I'll call the Barack Obama Joe Biden, or maybe working with John Boehner Joe Biden. Here's some sound from 2011 and 2012 on painful budget cuts. Take a listen.
The president put me in charge of working with the Democrats and Republican leaders in the House and the Senate to reduce the deficit by $4 trillion over 12 years. Those talks are going on. I believe we will meet that objective. We're talking about here today is cutting waste. We laid out a plan to reduce the federal deficit by $4 trillion over the next decade. And people say, well, how do you do that? Well, we do that by making some very painful cuts. We already cut over $1 trillion, painful cuts.
So, Sandra, he did it then.
Yeah.
Why can't he do it now?
It's normal to negotiate, right?
I mean, he was a pretty good negotiator. He and Boehner did, by the way, a pretty good deal that markets liked.
Yeah.
Why won't he do it now?
But I mean, think about what McCarthy's asking here. It's not like this is some crazy stuff that McCarthy's presenting to him. I mean, he wants to cut non-defense discretionary spending. He wants to reclaim all that unspent COVID relief funding that's out there, strengthen work requirements for social safety net programs, and create policies to lower energy costs and secure the U.S.-Mexico border to stem the flow of illegal drugs. I mean, isn't that worth sitting down and having a conversation, which is why, by the way, when we look at all this polling and showing that voters are mostly concerned about inflation, they perhaps should focus in on another area of this poll. Pending his soon announcement that he's going to run again for the presidency. 52% of Democratic primary voters would like to see someone other than Biden as their party's presidential nominee.
You are so mean to raise that.
I mean,
very embarrassing.
That's what showed up in this polling.
52%.
Well, what do you think is going to happen when you don't address inflation?
I think
you ignore it, and then you try to address it and can't fix it.
Right. I think if Biden cannot show his party and the rest of the country that he can do business across the aisle with the House Republicans, if he can't show that, he's in a heap of trouble.
So who's going to get in his ear?
I don't know. Some heads are going to have to pop up. You know, Bill Clinton had to deal with this, but I want to go back. It's even interesting to me, Barack Obama, okay, who is looking more and more moderate, even conservative these days, because he's not a Bernie Sanders figure. It's Joe Biden who's turned to Bernie Sanders. So Obama did a deal with John Boehner. All right, and I don't know what the numbers were. It's about $1 trillion over, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and then it accumulates in the out years. They kept almost all of the George W. Bush tax cuts, except a tiny sliver at the top, which went up a little bit. And they raised the debt ceiling. So they cut spending. They raised the debt ceiling. Taxes really even aren't on the table right now because Biden's tax hikes will never get through. Now, if Biden did it for Obama, and remember, Obama was reelected. Remember, Obama beat Mitt Romney. A lot of people thought he wouldn't in 2012. Part of the reason was probably that deal, which showed that Obama could govern. Biden's got to show folks that he can govern. And he's doing a damn poor job of it right now. And then let's look at Kevin McCarthy, who is so open to compromise, okay? McCarthy is not a... Look, John Boehner is a friend of mine, but John Boehner was kind of a tough, rough guy to do business with, okay? So, former saloon keeper in Ohio. He wouldn't even disagree with me. Kevin McCarthy is sort of California cool. Easy to get along with, right? That's right. Easy to get along with. We'd love to have dinner with him. In fact, I have many times. So I think Biden's got to show that. Otherwise, some heads might pop up in that Democratic primary that no one thinks possible. That's my
I think this is why it's important to say, and you know, I don't have to do this, but every single day I have a team of bookers. Every single day. I did it first thing this morning. I said, please call the White House, ask if they'll have somebody on the program. Look, we just want to talk economic policy. And who's advising the president? I really want to know. Who is advising the president? This is messaging that's very important. It would be very important for him for wanting to run for another 4 years of office. Who is he listening to?
Well, I don't know. I mean, he has a new chief of staff. He has a new NEC director, my old job.
They won't give me anybody. They won't deploy anybody.
Well, I think that's sort of head in the sand stuff. But the thing is, I think what Kevin McCarthy is saying, I mean, he's laid out stuff, put stuff onto it. But he's willing to compromise. You've got to compromise. You've got to get through the debt ceiling. You have a few months to do it, and Biden is saying no. I think it hurts Biden much more than Republicans. I also, Sandra, want to highlight this H.R. 1, the Lower Energy Cost Act that they just put through, which does all of the permitting and pipelining and NEPA reforms, and by the way, helps renewables so you can have a construction for minerals that are necessary for electric vehicle batteries.
You see all
it's all there. And Biden
see what he did to all the left with the Alaska project?
I know, but Biden says he's going to veto it. There's stuff in there for renewables as well as to go back to fossil.
He's got to do something. He's got to send some sort of message, whether it's on energy or whether it's this is going to be a business-friendly environment.
Even Joe Manchin was teed off at him in the Wall Street Journal this morning.
I'm telling you, if people don't feel good, and they don't feel like they can, quit their job and go to another job, or if they don't feel like they can send their kid to the school that they want to send them to, or sign them up for the activity, I'm telling you, this is like real-world stuff that's happening right now. People don't feel like they have economic security in this country.
And Manchin didn't get his pipeline in West Virginia. And the thing cost $1.2 trillion, according to Goldman Sachs. So it was 3 times the cost of no pipeline. So Joe Manchin is one teed-off guy. Right? He's a Democrat.
Then maybe he needs to get in there for a Diet. Is it Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi?
Could be Diet Coke. could be a drive-in movie, by the way, in those old bench seat cars. Remember when we were kids? Oh, they were so great. The two of them could get together.
That'd be so nice. See, you need a graphic for TV just like that.
America, I don't want to go too deep on this particular topic, but I would say Americans want to see progress. That Fox poll shows Americans want to see progress, and Joe Biden is not showing progress. That's why he's at 35%. Now, polls are just polls. They're not votes, but they're snapshots, right? At a point in time, they just tell you kind of what folks
Well, listen, more than 7 in 10 say inflation's caused their family hardship, and many couldn't make ends meet if they missed more than 2 paychecks. That does not feel good.
No.
And that'll show up at the polls.
No. One other point I want to make. I'm so happy that McCarthy has put work requirements into the mix.
Amen.
I have talked about this for months and months and months, right?
What good is it if there's no conversation?
Agreed. But I think it'll be hard for Joe Biden to... Here, go back. Bill Clinton, a Democrat, made a deal with Newt Gingrich, a Republican, about work requirements. And guess what? Poverty rates went down, welfare rolls went down, budget spending went down, and deficits went down. It was like win, 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 win. Now, why wouldn't Joe Biden want to do that again?
What's the answer?
Well, I think he's being tugged by the socialist left-wing part of his party. When I call him a Bernie Sanders guy, that's what I'm suggesting. Just my guess. Sandra Smith, she got all worked up. She wants a Diet Pepsi in the Oval. There's not too much there. My former boss, by the way, supplied Diet Cokes in the Oval with Hershey bars from the top drawer of his back room, dining room office. Hershey bars.
You know what? I'll take a lemon in that Diet Coke, too.
All right, you got it. Be sure and catch Sandra and her great co-anchor, John Roberts, on America Reports every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox News.
Thanks for having me, Larry.
Thank you ever so much. Best of the best. All right, folks.